Hello and welcome to my channel, and for this week's in-betweeny video I've decided to do something different. Now, for a long time I've been considering coming up with concepts for new kinds of videos to do on my channel, and this particular one I've been toying with the idea of doing it for quite some time, but I haven't really got around to doing it and I haven't quite figured out exactly how it's going to work. But because I was going to do a video between the bot stop live feeds that I've just done the other day and what I'm going to do next week, do these what I would refer to as in-betweeny videos. I was in two minds as to what video I was going to do this week, and I had a choice between doing a review of a third-party figure that I picked up. Well, actually it was the last bot I bought, which was that fans project Warbot revolver core that I bought off James Lai at Max Me Love Toys at TF Nation, or doing this new concept video. And I couldn't make my mind up what I was going to do, so I did a WhatsApp message to Mr. James Lai and gave him the decision as to what I was going to do, and he said he wanted to see me do this video. So what I'm going to do today is something I refer to as CMSC. That's character mold set collecting. Now, I've referred to this in a number of videos in the past, but I need to sort of get the ground rule of how this thing's going to work off the bat, I think, for this particular video. I do this thing whereby certain characters, I like to collect all the individual molds for said character, and I've done this for about 4 or 5 different characters. And the main character that I've got the most number of molds for, that I've been doing character mold set collecting for, is Huffer, and I've got 9 versions of that mold. But there's a 10th mold that came out last week, which is the new Bad Cube version of the Cubex mold. I want to get hold of it, but because of the bot stop I can't buy one until next month. So I decided to pick one of the other characters instead, and the character I've decided to pick for this first one is Skybyte. Now, before I actually get on to the actual the character mold set collecting video itself, there's a couple of rules that I came up with on how this video is going to work, and I'll put them on the screen now. The CMS rules are: rule number 1, the toy must transform. It must be a transforming toy. No figurines that don't transform. Number 2, only official and third-party bots count. No KOs. Number 3, no kit bots. That is, bots that are assembled from parts or components like crayons or Kabaya gum kits and other such model kits. Number 4, repaints are allowed when another mold is repainted into said character but not the other way around. Basically, you can have a toy that is repainted into the character that you're doing the mold set collecting for from a different character mold, but it doesn't work the other way around, i.e. you can't take the character mold and repaint it as a different character, if you know what I mean. So number 5, no mold duplication. If multiple differing repaints of a character mold exists, pick one as an example and then leave the others. So that said, they are the 5 rules that I've came up with for this basic thing. So how is it actually going to work? What do I mean by mold set comparison? Well, I've got all 4 of the existing Skybyte molds that are available to date, and I've got the original one, which was based on the character from the Car Robots, or the original RID series from the late 90s. Then I've got the Generations one, I've got the BotCon exclusive, and I've got the third-party KFC version as well. So there's 4 different molds altogether. Now, I've been toying with the idea of exactly how this mold comparison thing is going to work, and some of the other characters that I've got like G1 molds, and then Generations mold, and Titan's Return, and like 5 or 6 different molds spanning over different toy lines. But the way I've decided to do this comparison, instead of comparing them on the likes of articulation, because if you get like a G1 character and then try to compare it with a third-party Masterpiece figure, you can't compare the two, because in terms of articulation, and transformation, they're worlds apart. The G1 figures have very simple transformations and hardly any articulation, whereby the third-party Masterpiece figures are the opposite end of the spectrum. They are like, you know, super complex transformations, and they've got every single articulation joint known to man. So you can't compare the two on that respect. So what I've decided to do instead, I'm going to take the image of the original character as it appeared, either as a toy or as a character in either a comic, in the fiction, in a comic book or a cartoon series, and take that as the original version of the character. And then I'm going to see how the original toy compares to the original character from the fiction, and then compare all the other subsequent moulds to the original character in terms of aesthetic and colours. And that is the way this video is going to work. Now, as I'm flying blind with this video, I've never done anything like this before. It's a totally new video concept. It's going to be a bit rough and ready, I think. I don't know whether it's going to work. It's going to be an occasional series. I'm not going to do them on a regular basis. I'm just going to do them when I feel the need. Like I said, I've got like 4 or 5 different characters that I collect moulds for at the moment. And I'm only going to do videos for completed sets that I've got up to date. But I will say that all these sets are in flux, because you never know in years to come, or months or years to come, another company, or you might get another official one, or another third-party company might do a figure. So you might get alternative versions or brand new moulds coming along at a later date. So I'm just doing what moulds are available right now, and as far as I'm concerned, I've got all 4 of the current Skybyte moulds. So, with that said, let's get started. So first of all, we've got to look at the original character. Now, I'm not going to go into Skybyte as a character from the RID. We all, if you've ever watched RID, you'll know he's quite one of the characters that stands out from that original series, voiced by the inimitable Peter Spellos, who graced us with his presence at the last auto assembly in the first TF Nation. So that was great, and it was a weird show, and it had some strange episodes and some memorable characters, but also a lot of silliness went on in it. But Skybyte was one of those characters that really, he grew on you. You learned to love him even though he was a bad guy. They did a lot of character development with him. And the original look of Skybyte from the show was this. So you've got his robot mode, and then you've got his shark mode. So he's like a cybernetic shark. Now from that, they created this. Now this is the original toy. This is actually the Takara version, not the Hasbro one. So the colours are the blue's a little bit darker on this one than it is on the What's It one. But to do a comparison on the mould compared to the original cartoon character, I'm going to see if I can do some split screen action. So let's get on with that. So here we can see on the left we've got an image of Skybyte as he appears in the original show, and on the right is a photograph I've just taken of my original toy. And when we look at the two, the original mould is pretty close to the character model from the show, but there are a few differences. One, the shoulder pieces on the original thing are more blue with a white streak, whereas you look on the ones on the toy, they're mostly white with silver tech detail. The toy also has, because of the nature of the transformation, has a lot of kibble hanging off the back. There's quite a few fins and pieces hanging off the back which aren't visible on the character model from the show. The chest is pretty close to the show. It's got the spark crystal in the middle, it's got the red eyes either side, it's got like the silver patch on one side and the blue patch on the other, and then it's got the white abs section with the silver bit in the middle going down to the waist. The head sculpt is pretty close. It's got a yellow face with red eyes and a white grimacing mouth. Sides of the head are white. It's got like a blue on the top, and in the show it's shown as a silver piece on the front of the head crest fin, and the sides are blue. as I've got the Takara one, obviously there's a lot of silver in there as well. Moving down to the waist. The waist is shown as being grey on the original figure, but it's also like a shiny sort of dark silver on the toy. The arms are pretty close to the character model from the show. You've got these yellow pieces on the upper arms. You've got the dark blue upper arms. Moving down, you've got the blue piece, the blue forearm bits with a fin hanging off, and then you've got the tail arm, which has got a white forearm with the blue, yellow, and white open fin blade on the end. And that's quite well replicated on the original toy. On the hips, now this is where the toy differs. The toy is proportion wise, it's got much longer thighs, and they're obviously a lighter shade of blue. But then again, I have got the Takara version of the toy that's got the darker shade of blue. Moving down to the knees. The knees on the character model from the show, it shows as having little silver bits down there, and you've got these small kneecaps. Then you've got the yellow shin guards, which are pretty much replicated. And then moving down, you've got the silver ankles and then the white feet. So it's a pretty good representation of the character from the show, given the nature of the articulation and the transformation. So there we go. That is a comparison between this and the original character model from the show. Just to clarify a few things. Obviously, the toy has got a lot more detail on it compared to the character model from the show, because when you're an animator, you don't want necessary complications on the character you're trying to animate. So they will have removed certain details from the character model, and they would have simplified it as much as they can with keeping the basic sort of shapes and colours. But as you can see on this one, it's got all this lovely painted tech detail on there, and you go on the back and he's got all this chrome detail here. Now also I can also show all the kibble he's got. He's got these the fin pieces sticking off the back, and these you can sort of angle these any which way you want. They're on ball joints and pivoting joints, but I try to angle them over the shoulders to look like the original character. This toy also has this nice pearlescent finish on the white parts. You can't really see it, but it's got a nice iridescent sheen on it, and obviously it's got the spinny blade thing on his arm. So now that we've looked at the robot mode, let's go to the shark mode. So here we have Skybyte in his shark mode. On the top of the screen you've got the character model from the show, and in the bottom right hand picture we've got my original toy in its shark mode. Now the first thing you need to mention about the toy is that it is in a curved posture with the tail. The tail is like curved round to the right hand side. So it isn't a straight up shark. Also, the mouth of the shark is open because there is a missile launcher inside, and you can't close his mouth. But going on the aesthetic and colour details on the side of the figure, you can see that it does pretty closely match that of the original model, with a few minor differences. Obviously, the model has the toy has hollow bits in the fins, the dorsal fin and the pectoral fin, whereas the character model from the show, those areas they seem to be filled in black. The toy has extra moulded in tech detail on the sides of the tail flank, on the top of the top, and just in front of the dorsal fin and on the sides of the head, which, as you can see on the character model from the show, those areas have been greatly simplified. But the colours are a fairly close match, apart from the streak of yellow on the tail, which is the fold-out fin for the claw arm. It looks pretty close. Again, because I've got the Takara version, the blue used is a slightly darker shade, and it's got more of a gradient fading down to the silver and the white of the lower half of the shark. But it does look pretty close to the character model from the show. So much more a better look there. So there we go. There's a comparison of the original toy to the character model from the show. But now, before we move on, just want to show the original toy in some detail. Obviously, you've got the open mouth with the missile launcher inside. It's got a wealth of painted tech detail on the top. It's got some nice chrome bits there. It's got the bits there, all the bits down the side. It's got these chrome sections underneath. And then obviously, now you see what I mean about the shark mode having a curve to it. It's not so much a straight shark, whereas it's curved to the right. And as you'll see, some of the other molds that I've got, especially the Generations mold, the Generations mold has a curve that goes in a different direction. It goes down rather than to the side, but it has a pronounced curve. This does have a gimmick whereby you can, there's a little wheel on the side so you can spin the tail round. But this isn't a review of this toy. This is a comparison of this mold to the other Skybyte molds that I've got. But as you can see, the original one, it's very fancy, a lot of painted detail, a lot of tech detail, and very fetching looking cyber shark. So we move on now to compare this original mold to the other molds that have come out. So now that we've had a look at the original toy and compared it to the original character model from the show, I've got him back into robot mode, and I noticed when I was transforming it to shark mode that these shoulder pieces were on back to front. You know, I said that they weren't showing the blue and the silver pieces. Well, actually, now I've put them on the right way around, they are showing the blue and silver pieces on the shoulders. So anybody who would like to point out to me when I was showing it earlier in the video, oh, you've got them bits on wrong way around, or you've transformed it wrong. Sorry about that. Obviously, these bits pop off ever so easily when you're transforming it to and fro, so it's quite easy to just fit them on the wrong way around to what they're supposed to be. But anyway, it looks a lot better for it. So now we compare this mold to the other mold in terms of colours and aesthetics. So this toy came out in 1998. This was when the original show came out. And then the next mold I've got to show you is the Generations mold, which we have here. And this came out, I think it was a couple of years ago, 2014. I've been looking for a date on it, but I can't find one. I can't be bothered to look it up. So this is the Generation mold. Let's do a quick size comparison. So there you have the original toy next to the Generations mold, and the Generations mold is a Voyager figure, and as you can see, he's slightly taller. I mean, I suppose this would class as a Voyager figure because it was bigger than the Autobot brothers and you know, the free Decepticon, well, free Predacon guys. So yeah, it is a fair bit bigger. Now, in terms of aesthetic, there's quite a few differences going on with the original figure. So if we look at the chest, obviously the chest on this, it's got a very pronounced chest, whereas Skybyte's original chest is kind of flat. Because this is the nose of the shark. Now on the original toy, the nose of the shark is sticking out of his butt. So they managed to work the transformation, the shark mode, into the transformation. Colour-wise, he's got a lot more yellow going on this one than the original one. The original one, as you can see, the original one has got yellow on the shoulders, on the shins, and on the weapon and his face. Whereas this one, if you look from behind, most of his structure is made from yellow. I mean, the backbone of the torso, the shoulders, the upper thighs, and the shin pieces are all made out of the yellow plastic. And obviously, he's got yellow on his arm claw. Head sculpt is fairly close. Colour-wise, the Generations one has got most of the colours going on, except the sides of the head are silver instead of white. The face sculpt is a little bit more pronounced but it's got the yellow face. In fact, it's a metallic yellow, red eyes, and a grimacing white face. And then you've got the shark fin on the top. Obviously, the one on the Generations is smaller and it's unpainted, it's grey plastic, whereas the one on the RID toy is much larger and has paint on it. Now moving on to the arms, the upper arms are yellow as they are on this, and then the lower arms are blue with some sort of painted tech detail, which is kind of similar. I mean, this one's got a blue forearm with the fin pieces on. And because the transformation on this guy is different, they've taken a few things. The thighs are yellow. It's got grey knee pieces, which are much larger. The yellow shin pieces they sort of wrap around the leg, and they haven't got the cutouts like on the original. And then again, we've got grey feet instead of white feet on the original. So it does, the colour palette on this does works significantly different, or it does look quite a bit different from the original. It's got a lot more blue and yellow going on than this guy. I mean, but then again, this guy, the blue on this is a darker shade of blue, so it's not so obvious. But yeah, the Generations toy, and as going against the look of the original figure, there are quite a few differences between this and the original character from the TV show, which is why I'm comparing it to the original toy mold, which is probably the most accurate representation of the cartoon character in toy form. But it's a decent mold. I'm not really going to go into articulation because obviously this guy has got a lot of articulation going on. Obviously, he's got the shark fins are tucked into his back. On the other one, they're sort of hanging out the back there. On this guy, they're much neater, folded up into the backpack. And the sides of the shark, they sort of fold in double and form these sort of wings off his back, which is sort of similar to the original, but they're much further back on the toy than they are on the original toy. So that's the comparisons with this mould. Now the next mould I've got to show you, I mean, now we're getting into the realms of repaints and third-party figures. So the next one I've got to show you is the 2010 BotCon exclusive repaint of Energon Sharkticon. Now I have got Energon Sharkticon. So here is the original, and this Skybyte is a repaint of this mould, and it's quite a good repaint. I mean, it's a totally different mould because it transforms into a kind of a shark-like, sort of submarine. So they had to work with it, and I think this is one toy that works purely on colours and the head sculpt, because by putting these certain colours on this, it really works as a Skybyte. And doing a comparison, obviously this is a deluxe toy against the original, which is a Voyager, so size comparison there. Now, it has got the odd colours on the chest, like on the original, the silver and the blue. They've got that. They've also got the red pieces in here to signify the eyes on the chest piece. And on the toy, it also has this piece of red on one side of the abdomen, which has also been replicated here with the red there. Other similarities. Now the shoulders, they've basically reversed the colours on the shoulders. On this one it's like blue with a silver line in the middle, and on this one they've got white shoulders with a blue stripe. So they've reversed the colours on the shoulder pieces. The upper arms are blue on this instead of yellow, but it has got these yellow fins sticking off the forearms, which would then ape the yellow colours on the arms. Now it doesn't have the tail weapon on this one, but again, that's one of the things that on this particular mould that they had to do. It has got the silver waist piece, and it's got dark blue thighs. Now on the lower legs on this one you've got these shin guards. On this one it's got these spikes that stick out, but they've painted them yellow to simulate the shin guards. You've got the lower legs are in white, and it's got yellow and silver on the feet, whereas these ones are just white. Now the head sculpt is very good on this. The only difference is it doesn't have the shark fin head crest, but it's got the yellow face with the grimacing eyes, yellow face with the grimacing face, red eyes, white around the sides of the head, and it's got a silver crest on top of the helmet. So it's a pretty close match to the original, just isn't so elaborate. And then we get round to the backpack. Now, on the original toy, the shark nose becomes the this massive great butt chunk. But the way this guy transforms, the whole front of the shark mode becomes a huge backpack, and as it happens, he's got the prow of the submarine, which is like the nose of the shark mode, just sticking out of his arse. So in that respect, it does emulate the original. It just isn't sticking out at an angle. So even though this is a repaint of a totally different mould, it does work as a Skybyte character. It's, this particular arrangement of colours just jumps out at you and say, that's definitely Skybyte. They've done an excellent job of repainting this or repurposing this mould as Skybyte. Now the final mould I've got to compare is a third-party mould, and it's the KFC Heavy Metal Phase 2 Haiku. Now this is again a totally different mould as this mould was, because this is actually based upon it's a third-party mould based upon a figure from the Brave series, and I've made a few notes. It's the series The Brave and the Gold Gauldron from 1995, and the character is Captain Shark. They did a toy of it which transforms into a big red shark, and KFC did a third-party figure of it, a picture of which I'm going to put in here. And this is just a repaint of that mould. So they repurposed that mould to form this character. And they did it again. They also repainted it into a character to emulate Sharkticon here. But looking at Haiku, now, again, going back, comparing him to the original toy, and he's a little bit bigger than the original RID Skybyte. Now, colours wise, the blue they've used is, again, it's a lighter shade, and again it's a different mould, so certain things they've had to take liberties with certain aspects, like fins sticking off his arms, and then the yellow bits on his head. But they've done the best they can with what they've got. And when you look at them, obviously the chest, because it forms the front of the shark, they didn't go overkill with the painting of the front end of the shark. So when you compare it with the front end of the shark on the RID version, you can see it's very plain and very sort of bland as a result. But it has got on the shoulders, it has got the blue shoulders with the white or the silver stripe. So it has got that. The head also is kind of reminiscent of Skybyte's head. It's got a silver fin crest, which is a bit small compared to the original. It has got a yellow face with red eyes. It has got a toothy grimace, but they haven't painted it in, so it's just yellow, the same colour as the face. But the sides of the head are silver rather than white, so you could get a paintbrush and touch that in to make it a little bit screen accurate. The upper arms are yellow, emulating the upper arms of Skybyte. And then moving down, he's got a few more paint details on his waist, whereas What's It was just moulded detail and a grey waist. Forelegs are blue. Now it's got the yellow spikes coming off the legs, which in some ways emulates this mould. So really comparing these two is probably a better match because of the thing they transform into. But moving down, it's actually got some extra blue pieces down here, but again that's part of the alt mode for this particular thing. So it's not as obvious as Skybyte as, I mean, this nails it in terms of the colour match and the colour details. But aesthetically and colour wise, it's quite a ways away from the original toy, but it's still vaguely recognisable as a Skybyte homage. So it's not bad. It works. It's definitely a version of Skybyte, but it's again quite a bit different from the original toy mainly because of the nature of the mould and the paint apps that they've applied. They've tried to emulate the basic colour match of the original toy, and they've done a decent job. But I think they could have done a bit more to make it look a bit more like the original toy. They could have gone a bit further, added some more paint apps, and made it look more in keeping with the original figure. Yeah, so there we go. That is my mould comparison of the robot mode. So now we've got to get into the shark mode. Right, that took some doing. Some of these moulds, especially the Generations one, I've not transformed it for a while, and I got some bits stuck, and it took me a while to figure it out. Anyway, we're on the home stretch now. We're just going to do a quick comparison over the shark modes. So obviously here is the original RID, and then let's do a quick comparison with the Generations. Now, as I was saying, this one's got a tail that curves that way, and this one's got a tail that curves downwards, so that curves to the right, and that one looks straight from the top. But when you put them side by side, you can see this tail curves in a different direction, so it's almost like a leaping pose, whereas this one is like a shark just swimming through the water and then swinging its tail from side to side. Size-wise, this is the original is far bulkier than the Generations toy. The fins are fairly close in terms of you know, they've just got hollow bits in them. The tail as well is fairly reminiscent. Obviously, it's got this one's got a missile launcher built into the tail. But as for the rest of the colours, the Generations one's obviously got the blue nose, whereas this one has got, you know, it's all you know, coloured in with the rest of the shark. The teeth are kind of sticking out a little bit more. The gum line's got a more protruding gum line than the original. The eyes are a slightly different design to the original too. Moving back, it's got the silver bits here, which kind of emulate the gills on the original. But then you've got the blue, and it has got similar sort of tech detail going down the sides of the shark mode. Smaller dorsal fin, but it is recognisable as Skybyte, but it doesn't quite capture the look of the original, really. There's quite a number of differences, and you know, they could have done a better job of painting it up to more match the original toy, but they decided to go with this particular colour scheme. Then we get on to this version. Now, obviously, it's not a shark; it's a submarine sort of shaped like a shark. But actually, this one does a much better job of emulating the colour pattern of the original toy. It's got the dark blue upper, and it's, you know, sort of white underneath. The fins on this are obviously lower down, and they're yellow. It hasn't got a dorsal fin as such. It's got like a conning tower, and they've got the yellow fins on the back. But I think it does look, given the colours, even though it's not obvious from this film that I'm doing, it does actually look like Skybyte in this submarine mode. It does, the colour pattern does match Skybyte quite well. But anyway, that's the comparison between them. And then finally, we're on to Haiku. Now, Haiku is the biggest, the bulkiest shark. Again, he's a more of a robotic shark than a more semi-organic shark like the original Skybyte. This one does have an opening mouth. The Generations one also has a mouth that can open and close slightly. Though if you're not careful, you can push it in. So it will open a little bit. But this one opens far greater. And again, it doesn't really, Haiku doesn't really look much like Skybyte in shark mode. Not chiefly amongst because the aesthetic design of the mechanical shark, but the fact that again it's a shark ship rather than a shark. But the layout of the colours, I mean, it's got white fins at the front rather than blue fins, so that's something they could have done. Again, if they'd took a little bit more attention on the paint apps on this, they could have made it look more like the original character. But there was only going for a rough approximation rather than a sort of a accurate representation. So I mean, it's a decent figure, and it does work as a third-party Skybyte, but it doesn't really match the original toy much in terms of its colours. And then we'll do, now if it looks more like anything, it obviously looks more like this version, but again, as in this has got more of a Skybyte colour pattern on it, you compare it with those, and again, this doesn't quite make it. I think it's because it's got this sort of pale grey, bluish grey nose cone on it, which it would have been better if they'd have done it the dark blue. It would have looked much better. But anyway, and a quick comparison with these two. Now, if you look at those from the top, they do kind of look similar in the layout, the colour layout. But then, looking from the side, it actually more closely matches the Generation one than the RID version in terms of the colours used and the way the colours are laid out. So it does, better match the Generations one. And let's have a quick look at these two. Again, they look totally different because the light blue nose on the Generations one. So that's it then. How do you think this went? A different kind of video. Again, I don't know whether the format that I've used has worked particularly well. I think I need to work on it to streamline it a bit more, especially when it gets to the likes of Huffer, where I'm going to have like 10 molds to look at rather than just 4. It's a different kind of video, something that I've been thinking of doing for a while. I don't know whether it's come across particularly well. Again, I might have to look at it, and I'll be interested in people who can give you some feedback as to how best to make changes to it to make it a better video overall. But I hope you found this interesting. A look and comparison of the various Skybyte molds. And yeah, so there we go. I've been TFR Wilderness, and this has been hopefully the first in a series of my CMSC or character mold set collecting videos. Hope you've enjoyed it, and obviously we're coming to the end of the bot stock month, so only a week to go, and well, less than a week to go until I can start buying bots again, so looking forward to that. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. I've been TFR Wilderness. I bid you adieu. Goodbye.